Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, the first podcast bringing the local fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I'm Joe Baya, and today I'm joined with Captain Richard Rutland. Captain Blood, what's up, Richard?
Oh man, just happy to be here. Talk about some fishing. I think you had it right when you said ugly. A little while ago, we're kind of on a little bit of a tough period here inshore, but I look forward to get better here as we get off this full moon.
Do you put most of it on that moon phase, or is some of it on? We've had some turbulent weather conditions, and how much of it is moon and how much of it is kind of a transition?
I think it's mostly moon phase. Earlier in the week, right on the moon, I caught some really nice size fish, and you could tell that they were females and that they were already spawned out. Their bellies were fairly skinny, and you could see kind of the red marks around on their bottom end of the fish, and you could tell they'd spawned out already. So I think they're kind of getting what I call the post full moon blues, where they get a little bit lazy on you, and you really got to work for them.
Yeah, they need a cigarette, I guess. So. Well, let's get into this week's show's sponsor. This week, it's your local Geico insurance office. Everybody knows Geico has great auto rates, but did you know they also have great rates on boats, ATVs, motorcycles, and personal watercraft? Give Ron Davis a call at 251-445-0053. Not only will Ron work hard to get you the lowest premium possible, but you'll have the service you expect. Can count on it if you ever need, God forbid, to make a claim. And guys, Geico does even more than insure your valuable items. This is something that I didn't know about them, early on, but they also offer on-the-water services like towing, battery jumps, gas delivery, and you can save by bundling these services with your existing insurances, whether that's home, auto, anything that you've got. So if you're an Alabama saltwater fisherman, listen to this podcast, support the local insurance agent who helps bring it to you each week. Give Ron Davis a call at 251-445-0053 or visit them online at geico.com/mobile-al. Richard, tell me about the Wounded Warriors trip you guys put on. That's a really cool experience. I know with your military experience, you were happy to get involved with that. But tell me a little bit more about it and who all was involved and what y'all did.
So to start off with, I had a guy named Derek Warfield who runs an organization called the Fallen Outdoors. And what he does is puts together groups to go on hunting trips, fishing trips, any kind of outdoor activity. He mainly does it here, kind of across the Southeast. Anywho, it really started out as just he wanted to take a couple of guys fishing, and reached out to about 10 different guides in our area. He said I was the only one that responded back to him. And I started asking questions and asking how many people he could possibly bring down and if I could put together a group deal. And one thing led to another, and I ended up with 8 of us total to run about 18 veterans from our area, and it really came together very nicely.
So what guides were involved in it?
So we had Theo Atkinson, Bobby Everscotto, Patrick Garmison, Wesley Hallman, Ben Rains, and then I had two recreational fishermen help me out too. We had Terry Turner and Joe Guile help us out. So the state did something pretty cool. They put together a kind of a permit, if you will, a waiver to let some of these guys fish with the recreational guys and not have to buy a fishing license. So that was really nice. They really came together and helped out. And then the JCs donated some funds and put together a fish fry for these guys. After we came in from a hot day of fishing, got to sit underneath the awning at the rodeo site and enjoy some fried fish.
That's awesome. Well, congrats putting that together, and kudos on putting that together, because that's it's no small undertaking, I know, but I know those guys really appreciated it, and I know you guys, as all of us do, really appreciate their service.
That we do, and they had a great time, and I'm going to try to make it maybe a biannual event where I can have these guys down maybe twice a year, and we can do something like this, because it was so easy to put together, and everybody's willing to pitch in and help as they should, and as you would expect, and man, it was just great.
Yeah, it's awesome those guys can give some time. I mean, this is peak season for them, so that's a big deal for them to give up a day of fishing and do that. That's just great to hear, man. Good job on that. Well, let's get into our first report. We're going to take it offshore, talking with Captain Patrick Ivy, captain of the Breathe Easy, coming off of a really awesome tournament win. We're going to hear a little bit about some of that blue marlin fishing, some of that blue water fishing. Well, Captain Patrick, welcome back to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, man. I heard y'all had a good weekend this past weekend. Tell us about it.
We did. Thanks for having me. But, yeah, we were fishing the L.A. Billfish Classic out of Grand Isle, Louisiana, and had a really good weekend. Went 4 for 6 on blue marlin and wound up finishing in second place overall and second place tag and release, but we're top money winners. So that's really where we want to win, in the checkbook.
That's right. That's right. Well, tell us about that fishing. I mean, was that day just a tag and release tournament?
It was not. They had a kill in it, but it was a large kill, 112 inches. And the reason for that is over there in Grand Isle, they don't have a whole lot of facilities. If there were 3, 4, or 5 fish to be killed, they don't have the cooler space and things like that to keep them cold enough to donate to a food bank. So they upped the size a little bit, which is great. That's perfectly understandable.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, if you can still have a good tournament with good prizes and good winnings and not have to kill, game fish, that's a win all the way around, I think. Tell us about the 4 for 6.
And they have an awesome facility over there. If anybody gets a chance to go to Hurricane Hole, it's a really nice place over there.
Well, hopefully if they go, they won't go because of a hurricane. We'll just won't even mention that. Yeah, it is quite a nice facility over there. So the 4 for 6, was this all live baiting?
It was. We did live bait the whole time. I looked for the rip around the Sam Croft and Medusa on Thursday afternoon, and it was gone. Blended water, scattered grass, which has been absolutely brutal this year with grass. We've had days that were unfishable in places, and we would have to run to get out of it. But wound up headed southwest from there and found a rig that I thought looked like the right place, and there were 7 or 8 boats there, and saw several fish that afternoon feeding and hung out there, and everybody else left, and we made a trip out of it right there for 2 days. We never left and got the bites we needed.
That's awesome. So, that I'm sure that's a little bit nerve-wracking, watching everybody off to greener pastures, so to speak, watch them leaving, but you just stuck to your guns. You knew there was fish there, and you felt like, hey, if we stick it out here, we're going to make it happen.
Right. One of the biggest things for a fisherman is never leave fish to find fish.
Yeah, I've heard that my whole life.
That's the golden rule. I tell you, I can relate from an inshore side of things, being a tournament guy, and myself, and it's definitely nerve-wracking to sit and wait some fish out sometimes. But I always say when it comes to tournament fishing, really just fishing in general, it's a feeling. Fishing's a feeling. You get a good feeling about a spot. You see the feed there. You see the you guys actually get to see the fish actually feeding and stuff like that. And man, you just got to sit there and wait them out and be patient, and that's sometimes
right.
That's really tough. If you be a hero or a zero on that kind of stuff. So.
There's no doubt about it. That's for sure.
So Patrick, when you're at this rig and you see these fish, what are they doing when you see them? Are they coming up chasing bait? Did you just see bait showering?
They showered bait a few times, but we also saw, and that could have been the same fish a couple of times, but we saw 3 different fish. I know 2 of them were, 2 different fish from the size of them, but we did actually see, laid eyes on them, and I'm not sure what everybody else was looking at, but you see that, swimming around and chasing bait and things like that. It's just tough to leave, and we decided to stick it out, and everybody wound up leaving, and it worked out perfect.
Most of your bites, when the bites come, do they come early, late, all day long?
They were scattered out. The first day we caught a fish first thing in the morning at 6:30. Then we caught the next one, I want to say around 10:30, and then pulled another one off. I don't know, it was probably 3:30 in the afternoon. And then the very next morning, Saturday morning, we caught a doubleheader at 7 o'clock, which was cool. That's only the second doubleheader of blue marlins in the Gulf I've ever caught. And then we got another bite around 10:30 again. And then shortly after that, it was, about 1 o'clock. We had to head to the house, but it just, pay attention to your majors and your minors is very important in fishing.
Hey, Patrick, what kind of focus does that take for you as a captain and your crew to, you're talking about fishing almost 3 days and getting 7 bites. What is that like? The anticipation and kind of sitting there ready and managing your lines and your baits and your tackle the entire time.
That's a good question. It's tough. It's not like trolling where you can kind of throw your baits overboard and troll around and you don't really have to pay attention until you hear drag going off. My guys do a great job staying focused. I have 3 guys down there, 3 mates, and they're hands on a reel from daylight to dark, holding the line, holding the reel, waiting for a bite. So it's very involved. It's very time consuming catching bait and things like that. They never get to walk off the back deck, basically. Just a lot different than the trolling, and maybe that's why some of the guys are not big live baiters, but it just works out better for us. We do a lot better. It pays better dividends for us when we get more bites. But they are very hands-on, very concentrated in the game, and they do a heck of a job with it.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
I imagine it does take quite. I imagine it can be really mentally draining. I mean, if you're going 4 for 6, I'm sure you're still pretty amped up from the last fish. But.
Yeah, you get 6 bites in a weekend, blue marlin bites. That's a great weekend. I'd take that every weekend without a doubt. 2 weeks ago, or I guess it'd been 3 weeks ago during the Cajun Canyon, we never had a bite in 2.5 days, and that's very mentally frustrating. Some days you just don't have the right stuff. Some days you do, but you got to always be prepared. We treat every bite, no matter if it's acting like a shark or whatnot, we treat every bite as if it's a blue marlin. But you go 2.5 days without getting a bite, it'll wear on your psyche as a captain and a mate. You're trying to figure out what we did wrong, why we didn't get bites. That's a tough situation there.
Well, congratulations on the win, and I know that's an exciting weekend. I've only had 1 or 2 trips where we had that many marlin, in the baits, and those are really trips of a lifetime for most people. But tell me about the meat fishing. It seemed like from looking at the leaderboard, meat fishing's a little bit slow right now.
It is. The tuna fishing's really, really tough. Not seeing very many tunas. 2 of the 4 tournaments so far this year have had less than a 70-pound tuna fish win their tournament. We had one that was this weekend was 70 pounds, won the tuna fish, and then a couple of weeks ago in Venice, Louisiana, the tuna capital of the world, a 47-pounder won the tournament. So tuna fishing's tough, and a lot of that's got to do with the guys concentrating on blue marlin fishing a lot more. But the wahoo fishing has been pretty good, decent wahoos, and the dolphin they seem to be here thicker than they have been in 4 or 5 years, and that's because of the grass. There is grass everywhere. I mean, it's unbelievable, choked out. Sometimes we can't even fish through the grass. We'll have to pick up and run to another rig, or hold our live baits in our hand, our line, and guide it around the grass. Keep it, not putting it in the rig or just keeping it off the rod tip, off the transom.
I got you. Hey, Patrick, we're going to get a tip from you this week. This week's offshore tip is brought to you by the Coastal Conservation Association. Come learn how to tag a fish with Tag Alabama Recreational Tagging Program, a partnership between the CCA Alabama, USA Marine Sciences, and the Dauphin Island Sea Lab that allows recreational anglers to participate in a fish tagging research study. The program is going to be on Wednesday, June 26th at Bass Pro Shops in Spanish Fort from 6:30 to 8. There's no cost to attend the seminar. It is open to all CCA members with an active membership. After you complete orientation class, you will receive a free tagging kit with tags for speckled trout and redfish. If you would like to attend, please send them an email at info@ccaalabama.org. If you're not able to make the start time of 6:30, they can accommodate late arrivals. I want to just say something about this program. I've been participating. I kind of helped, I would say, pioneer it to a degree with CCA and USA Marine Sciences, and we've learned a tremendous amount about our inshore fishery through this tagging program. So I encourage anybody and everybody to come out and learn how to tag. So pretty cool deal. It's kind of like my little hobby on the side, when I'm guiding or fishing for fun. I always seeing how many tags I can get out in a day. It's a fun little game.
They've done a great job with that. From what I hear, the red fishing and trout fishing is at an all-time high in Mobile Bay, and that's great that it's become that way.
Well, we know how many blue marlin tags you can get out in a day or 2. But tell us exactly how you do it, man. What are you thinking for an offshore tip this week?
We use a couple of different sites, but Hilton's Real-Time Navigator is a big key to a lot of us that do this offshore tournament. But it's key to our success. We, get you a subscription and learn how to read it. Look at the chlorophyll, look at the currents, look at the altimetry. Instead of just going out there blind, burning fuel, you can get on Hilton's and find out where blue water is. There's so many tools on this to use to your advantage. And network. Everybody networks. Everybody talks and, gets tips for anything. But Hilton's will really help you and point you in the right direction.
Patrick, we've talked with a number of really good fishermen on this show, and I consider you to be one of those as well. And one of the things that I've seen across the board with everybody we've talked to is that whether it's mentally done or actually physically written down, these guys keep a log of when they're catching fish and the conditions in which they caught them, and also when they're not. Do you do anything like that? Is that a mental thing for you, or is that something where you actually keep track of, hey,
both. I do have a log book. Absolutely. I think anybody that really wants to be good at this should do that, or does keep track of what's going on, who caught what, where. And Hilton's actually has a new deal on their app to where you can put in fish and where they were caught and keep the conditions. I can't exactly remember what it's called, but it gives you. I can go back on my Hilton's and mark where we caught fish and where everybody else caught fish this past weekend, and it'll show me the altimetry, the chlorophyll, this and that. So it'll bookmark all that and show you and kind of does your homework for you.
Wow. That's awesome. Because that's the hardest part for me is like, I'll remember to write it down, but if you saw my desk, you'd be like, okay, which pile of papers is it in?
Right.
So
and we're both captains, awesome. We're not great with our grammar and keeping track of things like that. But yeah, the Hilton's app, and that's one of his new features that he did this year. And it's really awesome to see. That's funny you asked that question, because that was one of a big thing that he come out with this year, where you can actually put pins, what you caught, when you caught it, how you caught it, or who caught it, and pull up the actual conditions that day. Even next year, say for Emerald Coast, which is where we're at this weekend, I'll be able to pull up the conditions last year. Now you have to go in there and physically put in the fish and things like that. He's not going to do all that for you. So you can set it up however you want, but it'll give you the conditions. The conditions will always be there.
That's awesome. I know I do that a lot with my hunting. I try to keep track of trail camera photos and then match those up to the weather conditions when I got, say daylight photos of mature whitetails. I try to match those things up, and you do start, if you do it long enough, and you're diligent about it, you do start to notice patterns, and
absolutely
you can come back to those patterns, those weather conditions, atmospheric conditions, moon conditions. You can come back to those patterns regardless of the time of year. And I've definitely seen an increase of success on the hunting side of things from doing that. So I'm sure it's the same with fishing as well.
Absolutely.
Man, that is cool. Well, Patrick, man, as always, enjoyed having you on, and congratulations again on the big win, and thanks for sharing some of your insight with us. We'll look forward to having you on again.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Hey, Joe, that was a great offshore report from Patrick Ivey there. Man, great tournament win. Good stories coming from that tournament. Guess we'll bring up Captain Ugly, Patrick Garmison with Ugly Fishing here to bring our inshore report this week. Hey, buddy, how are you?
What's up, guys?
We need one more Captain Patrick. We need an onshore Captain Patrick, and we can have all
there you
Captain
go.
Patricks on here.
The 3 Ps. I love it.
Well, before the show, Richard and I were doing a little talking, and he said it's a struggle fest right now. What are you seeing on the inshore side of things?
Yeah, the struggle bus is getting full. I mean, I think it sounds like everybody I'm talking to is kind of riding the same struggle bus. So I don't know, man. I mean, we're getting some days. We're getting some days where the numbers might be there, but the size isn't. And and some days you may just pick up a handful of fish and you get some nice quality out of it. But it's been kind of been that way for, seems like maybe the last 5 or 6 days, maybe going on 7 days for me. And that's fishing everywhere. I've fished the Causeway, I've fished the Delta, I've fished Mobile River, Gilliard Island, Western Shore, Eastern Shore, Dauphin Island, Fort Morgan. There's nothing just setting the world on fire right now.
Well, we've got some interesting conditions. I saw the other night that a report for one of the first Jubilees of the year, maybe the first Jubilee of the year, and I might be wrong on this, but that feels early to me.
I was there. It was pretty interesting. We actually caught some really nice trout at daylight. There were birds working, shrimp hopping, some little like 10 to 13 inch trout were in amongst these shrimp. I mean, everything. It was just like setting up just perfect over on the Eastern Shore. And then all of a sudden I look around, I start seeing stingrays swimming around. And I mean, we were catching fish, and then all of a sudden we were not catching fish. And at like 8:30 in the morning, it is a full blown Jubilee. I mean, and it affected everything that swims. We saw big giant schools of redfish. We saw schools of trout. I saw sharks, stingrays, just shrimp. Everything that swims was affected by that Jubilee. And I can't remember what day that was. Maybe last Friday or something. And when that happens, everything in that area is not going to bite for at least a day, if not 2 days. So that can really hurt the Eastern Shore side of things. But usually what happens is if that wind direction switches, which it has, and we've gotten some south and west to the wind, it'll add a lot of oxygen to that water over there, and things will start improving pretty quick as far as the fish bite.
When I think Jubilee, I typically think middle of the summer, really, really hot. I mean, oppressively hot. And when I'm thinking those conditions, I'm starting to think about fishing at night around the dock lights. Have you guys heard any reports of that starting to kind of pick up, or is that something to key in on right now?
Yeah, that definitely could be something to key in on. I actually talked to Trini Woodham this morning at the bait shop, and he said that he was down at Dauphin Island and was looking to do some gigging or something, was wanting to try to gig some flounder, he said, and he said that they were going by some dock lights, and he said they were covered up with trout and redfish. So it certainly sounds like if you're not restricted to daytime fishing like Richard and I are, and nighttime fishing is something that you can do, it sounds like it'd be definitely a good option for you. One, to beat the heat, and two, it sounds like the fish are kind of congregating around those lights.
Man, I really wish that I had time to go and do some nighttime fishing. Captain Bobby gave me this book called Plugger about this guy been fishing like artificial lures for speckled trout since like the 30s. And he talks a lot in his book about catching fish at night, like not under lights, like going to a flat or going to an area that you would normally fish and fishing in the pitch black dark with lures and just absolutely wearing fish out. And I always wonder if that's what's going on during these moon periods where they're not feeding during the day. You're just really either catching a bunch of undersized fish that are not of spawning size yet or spawning class, and then you'll catch these random, bigger fish, it seems like, throughout the day, and it just seems like it's just very inconsistent. And you got to wonder if that's what's going on, if they're flipping around and feeding at night instead of during the day. Who knows?
I guarantee it. I mean, because there's not a lot of feeding going on in the day right now.
Yeah.
So when you see these kind of conditions like this, is it cause for despair, or are you just looking at it going, all right, as soon as the moon, kind of changes a little bit, we get out of this cycle, things ought to kind of pick back up? Is that what you think is going to happen?
Well,
definitely. For me, I always feel like that every slump is rewarded with some bounty behind it. So I'm steadily looking for any sign. You know, maybe the areas where I was catching 1 or 2 fish or 5 fish or something like that of decent quality leading up to this slump. Those are some of the areas that I'm going to go back and at least investigate. And sometimes you find that it just is on fire in those areas. So I'm optimistic that things improve pretty quickly.
Well, we're talking, when you guys are talking slow, you're typically talking about speckled trout, but what about redfish? Guys, what about Dixie
even
bars?
the redfish.
What's going on with the bull reds?
I haven't checked Dixie Bar in a while, but as far as just targeting slot redfish, even that's been a slow go. We'll catch some of the areas where I would expect to catch maybe 8 redfish or 10 or 12 when I drop the poles, the power poles. We're catching 1, maybe 2. So I mean, we're seeing a decline in everything that's, you know, as far as the amount of bites you're getting.
Yeah, the something I've been doing to maybe combat just being a charter fisherman, you know, having to make a day out of some bad, you know, a bad period of fishing. A lot of times during this kind of period, the redfish will save me, and I agree with what Patrick's saying. It's even hard to get bites from them right now. But, man, blackfishing's been great. There's been a lot of blackfish around there all the way up the bay. I caught some fish just south of Gilliard Island today, and I've even heard reports of them being north of Gilliard Island. And, man, we just got lucky and ran across a big rip today, and I slowed down and idled and found 4 fish real quick, you know, and heck, it made the day. We ended up catching 2 and seeing 4, and it ended up making the day. I always try to kind of think outside the box when we hit these tough periods with moon phase and whatnot. Think outside the box. Go catch something else. If they're not biting, then why beat your head against the wall?
Oh, you got that right. I will do the same thing and try to take advantage of a triple tail or even some Spanish mackerel or something like that. Something that, you know, when the day's done, you're like, man, you know what? We really didn't have a bad day. It just wasn't optimal for what I was wanting to do. But, you know, switching gears can help you out a lot.
Richard.
But one thing I was gonna say, one of the better bites that I did get on in the last couple of days was after the tide had fell out a long ways. I put my wife on the boat, and we hit a bunch of areas on the eastern shore that I'd been catching fish, and everything was zeroing. And I went to a little bit deeper water around some docks as the water was falling out, and we ended up just after working over several areas, we ended up finding a nice wad of redfish that were about 17 to 22 inches, and they were all up underneath the pier. I mean, only one pier though. I mean, we hit probably 6 or 8, and only one of them had any fish on it. So if you want to be hard-headed and keep working at it, there's definitely some fish to be caught.
Sounds like when you get in these slow times, and we've talked about that on past shows, slow times, it's a matter of persistence and capitalizing on the opportunities you get. That's the difference between having good days and mediocre days. And it doesn't take a whole lot of fish, like you're saying, Richard, to turn a mediocre day into a good day. I want you to talk a little bit more about that weed line fishing, because a lot of guys that have had experience with black fishing are used to running structure, whether it's buoys or ship channel markers or even crab trap pots. I consider, crab trap buoys, I consider that structure. But when you talk about fishing a rip like that or a tide line, talk to me a little bit about your strategy there. Do you, and really what I really want to focus in on is how do you approach those fish once you see them?
Like something I've talked about in the past, I always try to get the light behind me, you know what I mean? Because you're doing a lot of visual fishing, you're sight fishing. Mm-hmm. So I always get the light correct, you know what I mean? Whether I need to be looking to the left side when I'm moving down a rip or on the right side, either way, to what sets you up for the best. So sometimes you're sitting in the dirty water looking into clean water. Sometimes you're in clean water looking into dirty water, if that makes sense. And I start idling along. I literally found rips and idled along them for hours. and just found fish after fish after fish. It makes for some really exciting times. But I'm looking for a lot of the trash and stuff that's sitting in the rips. You'll want to find like sticks and logs and 5-gallon buckets. If I find a 5-gallon bucket floating around out in Mobile Bay, I'm going to catch blackfish, if not 2 or 3 most of the time. That's like finding that's like finding what's at the end of a rainbow is a 5-gallon bucket in the water. And but you just want to ease along. You don't want to be going too fast, because man, before you know it, boom, they're right on top. You're right on top of a fish and running over him. So I'll get as high vantage point as I can as far as getting up to be able to see. Idle along real nice and slow, and then when you see a fish, come to neutral. I kill the engine, get on my trolling motor, and I really like to approach those fish in those tide lines with a free line. You don't have any kind of vertical structure for them to wrap you up in or anything like that. You can fish a much lighter drag. Use just a spinning rod with about a 2-aught live bait hook, and pitch a shrimp or something over to them is usually the best way, in my opinion, to target those fish. So it's just take it nice and easy, and get up high, and just take your time and keep your eyes peeled.
I like it.
I've been doing a lot of this where I'm fishing shallow water, and I actually just get up and stand on top of my console and drive the trolling motor, and man, that seems like that's added a couple of fish to my day. So have you ever done that? Is your console the size of where you can stand on top of it?
Yep, I'll jump up on my console every once in a while. It feel like I'm standing on a 2x6 when I'm up there, like a single 2x6, when I'm on my console. But I have a great vantage point from my leaning post live well. It's about 3 foot off of the deck. I'll stand up on it a lot, and kind of almost steer the boat a little bit up there with your foot if the conditions are calm enough. And like I said, I mostly do that at idle speed, so try to be as safe as possible while you're out there doing that stuff.
Well, guys, this question would be for both of you then, and this is something that we've gotten a few times, questions to us, and we get boat questions from time to time. And one of the things that's become popular in the last decade or so are towers on bay boats. And we're starting to see, like my dad's boat has a folding tower on it, but you see a lot of the half towers as well, where you can jump up in that half tower and your feet are essentially at eye level, where you would be if you were just working with a regular center console. So I know neither of you guys run half towers on your boat. Why don't you take advantage of that?
All right, my answer is I don't particularly like anything overhead. I mean, I do a lot of casting on my trips, and the less things for customers to hit, the better for me. And that's my preference. I like as much space as I can for people to spread out and actually go through the motions of fishing. Go ahead, Richard.
For me, I tend to agree with Patrick. I want nothing to do with a T-top on one of my boats. It takes so much casting space away for me, and that's why I don't have one. Now I'm actually in the process of ordering a new boat right now, and I'm gonna price one out and see what one costs. You know what I mean? Because they are very pricey on a boat. But I'm thinking about maybe just seeing if they'll build me one that's just straight up and down, to where I don't have a top or anything off the back. And I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my brain around that, whether that's going to work for me or not. But it's definitely be useful, and definitely would, I think, definitely catch a lot more fish if you're up there running around the bay or out in the Gulf or whatever you're doing. It's definitely going to equal more fish at the end of the day, because you're going to see a lot more things up there that you would normally see if you were down at water level. You take yourself up 5 or 6 feet in the air, which really your eyeballs are more like 10 to 12 feet up in the air. Golly, you can see so much farther. You can see little patches of grass or a little bitty log that you might not have saw, or free swimming fish. These blackfish love to just lay on the surface and look like they're dead almost. And you're missing a lot of that when you're down at just water's level. And I would love to be up high, but it's a trade-off. Everything about a boat's a trade-off. You know, you get one thing and you lose another every way you look at it.
Well, and the other part, the other negative to it is this: when you get that tower, and you'll love being up there. You will like being up there, and you'll want to start staying up there as much as you can. And you can fish from up there too. So, you know, but like you're saying, Patrick, you do lose some of that casting ability for anybody that's not up there. The other problem, though, is that when you get it and you start to enjoy being up there, you're going to want to have all the same things that you've got at your helm up there as well. So you're going to want to have a fish finding unit up there, your GPS, everything else set up. So it's going to double the amount of electronics on your boat. And it like I say, it's just trade-offs. And you got to weigh that out. I think for the folks that are kind of wondering what they should do is you got to weigh that out. I think for you guys, y'all are taking a number of people every single day. And I could see that. For the average recreational guy, he's probably got enough room that he can afford to take up a little bit of room with the T-top and a tower if he wants one. So I will say this, though. You can see a lot more blackfish. That's a fact.
Man, I want one so bad, but it's just that trade-off. You know what I mean? Like I said, everybody wants a bay boat that's going to run 65 miles an hour and float in 7 inches of water and have these giant live wells
and stay dry in a 4-foot chop.
Yeah, and be able to go 25 miles offshore. I mean, that's what everybody's dream boat is. But it's you know, everything is a trade-off. You lose one thing, you get another, you lose the other. You know, it just I don't know. It's just boats.
there's no such thing as the perfect boat if you like to fish for more than one thing.
No truer words have ever been spoken.
Well, I want to ask both of you guys the Hey Cap question this week. It's brought to us by the Alabama Deep Sea Fishing Rodeo coming up July 19th through the 21st and the Roy Martin Young Anglers Tournament on July 13th. The Rodeo Open competition this year is $50 per angler, and there are additional jackpot competitions for big game, king mackerel, red snapper, and speckled trout. Tickets are available online at fishingchaos.com and at the following retail outlets: Academy Sports and Outdoors, Blue Water Ship Stores, Greer's Market, Fowl River, Howell & Associates Insurance, J&M Tackle, Quince Hardware, Pronto Pond Theodore, and Tackle This, Shoot That. Richard, I know y'all got a cool event planned this year. You got some new things happening. I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, let me add one thing in there right quick while we're talking about rodeo. Something we need to get out to everybody is there will be no captain's meeting this year. Okay, there's not a captain's meeting. You don't have to come down there and sign out for big game, king mackerel, speckled trout, red snapper. It's all going to be. There's no captain's meeting, and then cash prizes and everything can be all done online through fishingchaos.com. So
I'm excited about that. I think that's a really smart move on y'all's behalf, because this is going to allow guys that are Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida to fish in this tournament. And if they catch a nice fish, you know, it's worth it. It's worth it for them to go ahead and come on over. But they can fish, and if they don't catch something that they want to weigh in, they don't have to make that trip. So you're going to get a lot more attendance that way, and it kind of opens it up where it's in a way it's. You know, it's the whole Gulf now, really, if you want to look at it that way.
That's right. Who's king of the Gulf? I want to see it.
Yep, I love it. All right, boys. Well, this week, Brian Carson emailed us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com. He says, "Hey, Cap, during the hot summer months, I struggle to catch trout later in the mornings and during the midday. What's the best way to keep catching a few more? Or should I just pull up on the sandbar, pop the umbrella, and watch Darcizzle videos until the topwater bite turns into Nice question, Brian.
Oh, man.
I'm voting Darcizzle videos, but what do y'all think?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a Darcizzle video and a cold beer. But seriously, on increasing the trout bite during the day, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a switch towards trying to catch a big one. A lot of people think about big specs, daylight bite, sunset bite kind of thing. But I will switch gears, and it actually worked for us at for the Flora Bama rodeo. We caught some pogies and we started big fish fishing, and we caught a 6-pound, 6.34 trout for the Flora Bama rodeo. This past Father's Day, I had my son and my dad, and we caught one trout late midday, and it was a big trout. My son caught one a little over 5 pounds, and that's the deal. I always I'll switch over, go with some bigger baits, slow my fishing down a little bit, and just really key in on a big bite. And if you know that that's what you're going to do, you're going to probably not get many bites. Maybe not a single bite, but I would do that and have something to hang your hat on for the end of your trip.
You got anything to add
What
to
about
that,
you, Richard?
As far as from a charter fishing standpoint, I'm not always thinking about catching a big fish, I guess. During that time of the day, I'm usually thinking about maybe getting in some deep water over some rocks or around some structure, something of that nature, using a slip cork and using the tide and the wind to my advantage to do something like that. I know exactly what Patrick's talking about with catching a big fish throughout the middle of the day, because I feel like my partner and I, in a lot of tournament situations, have gotten some huge bites at that time of the day, from that whole 10:30, 11 o'clock till 2 or 3 in the afternoon kind of period, what a lot of people call like a dead period, where you don't have a ton of activity. We have, definitely cleaned up and gotten some tournaments done doing exactly what he's talking about. But I'm always going to retreat maybe to deeper water that time of day, try to find a fish that's not worn out by the heat, if that makes a sense. Because the water, believe it or not, the water temperature is getting on up there nowadays. I think I was seeing in the lower to middle 80s already. It's hot already. It's hard to believe it's that hot already, but it's here.
It's 86 degrees today. It's all probably 84, 85. It's definitely hot water time.
Well, Brian, excellent question. I think both these guys are totally sandbagging just to stay in good shape with their wives. I vote for the Darcizzle videos. So
I'm a Louisa fan myself.
I was going to tag Darcizzle in this, and now I can't because now you're talking about Louisa. So, well, guys, if you want to get your HACAP question in, just email us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com. And anyone who we select is going to be entered in to win the CCA Alabama Sea Deck Fish Ruler that will be given away on July 4th. HACAP questions get 10 entries, but you can also enter to win that over on our Facebook page or at greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR. Totally free to enter, so you guys jump in on that.
I'll tell everybody I've got my Sea Deck measuring deal on my deck of my boat, and I probably get more compliments on my measuring stick there. That's my Sea Deck measuring deal that the CCA does than anything else. Everybody's like, man, that is so cool and convenient and awesome. That's a great prize to be getting.
Yeah, if we could just catch a fish to measure on.
Well, most of mine have been measuring short lately, so I don't know how much good it's doing me. But anywho,
right? Are you supposed to say, no, we don't need that thing, man? Just throw it in the box. It's good.
Hey, Patrick, we appreciate the report this week, man. Great talking to you.
All right, guys, y'all have a good day.
All right, Richard. Well, you guys focus mostly inshore fishing, speckled trout, redfish, but I know you do, and triple tail, and you do a little bit of cobia fishing when they start showing up, and that gets hot. But our next contributor, man, he does a little bit of everything, but his thing that he sticks to is fishing from a kayak. So today on the show, we got Scott Kennedy with Whistlin Waters Kayaking Charters. Scott, welcome back to the show. Tell us a little bit about what's been going on the kayak fishing front.
What's up, guys? Well, the past week or two, minus the past 2 days, we've had a lot of real calm weather, a lot of north wind days. So we've been sneaking offshore, nearshore with our kayaks a lot lately. Doing a lot of the trolling around for king mackerel and Spanish mackerel, and you get a lot of the bonita out there. And then, of course, it's snapper season, so we're drifting out there and picking up some snapper as well.
We've gotten a lot of questions about offshore kayak fishing. recently, and a few questions with regards to bait. When you're going out offshore, I mean, if you're going to bottom fish, obviously you can choose jigs and you can choose dead bait, but what do you do for live bait? What do you like to do? Do you catch your bait out there with sabikis? Do you net up some bait right before you go? Do you even worry with live bait?
Yeah, live bait is key for kayaking offshore. Usually I try to throw my cast net beforehand and get a hold of, some live mullet or some live pinfish. But of course, you don't get those every time. Sometimes we have to, use the sabiki rigs, and sabiki rigs are usually pretty effective early in the mornings. Right around sunrise, you get those big schools of bait just off the beach, and we can pick up some of that, but I guess my preferred bait to use, though, is a live mullet out there.
Excellent. So talk to me a little bit about some of this near-shore snapper fishing that you're able to access with a kayak. What type of structure are you guys fishing on? Is this public structure or private structure that you know about, or are you just kind of drifting natural bottom? What are you using to key in on?
That's everything we're fishing is public numbers. Of course, we do a little bit of internet diving, try to find some numbers that are a little less than known, but everything's public, and we just get out there. And of course, you want a real calm day, because getting out that far in a kayak can be a little dangerous if you have any storms pop up or anything. But we just get out there and we just start working these public numbers over. We'll hit one, and if it doesn't have any good quality fish on it, we'll just move to the next one and just move from spot to spot. It's a lot of kind of rocky bottoms. We are finding some tetrahedrons and, some pyramids and stuff like that. But yeah, it's all public numbers. So it's all out there on the internet for you if you want to get a hold of it.
Hey, Scott, so when you're talking about paddling offshore, how far offshore do you think you guys are paddling?
We go anywhere from 2 miles out to about the furthest we've been is 4 miles.
That's pretty neat, man. That's really cool that you can get off, get that far offshore by paddle and go catch some fish and come home and have completed an offshore trip by kayak. That's freaking cool, man. Not a lot of people can probably say that at this point, huh?
Yeah, it's always awesome to get back to the beach. Seeing everybody's face when you pull up to the beach with some pelagic species or the red snapper. It's always a cool thing to see people's reactions to it.
Scott,
go ahead, Joe.
Scott, it seems like on public spots, first of the season, it can be pretty good. And then as pressure has increased and those spots have been fished, what I've always seen is that you need to start scaling down your tackle, and I lighten up a lot of my leaders, go to smaller hooks. Really, live bait starts to become more important. What are you seeing right now? When I'm talking about bottom fishing specifically, when you're out on these numbers that are really close to shore, and probably they're, being public numbers, they're getting hit fairly consistently. Do you see that need as well? What kind of tackle setup are you using? Are you going down to some of the 30-pound leader and having to do that yet?
We hadn't actually had to start doing that yet. Probably within another week or two of them getting hit, we'll probably start scaling down back to, like you said, some 40-pound or some 30-pound. Right now, I'm still using a lot of 50 and 60-pound, and we're still getting plenty of fish to bite. Of course, most of the big ones have already been either caught and taken home, or they're starting to get a little wise. So we're not seeing quite as many of the big ones as we did, opening weekend, but, we're still catching plenty of keeper size.
What do you like to look for? You mentioned a calm day. If folks are thinking about trying their hand at offshore kayak fishing, when you say a calm day, is the hardest part launching and then landing your kayak there in the surf? Are you more worried about the storms and things that could pop up when you get offshore?
Yeah, definitely getting off and on the beach is by far the toughest part, dealing with the waves breaking and everything. But, if once you get past that, you kind of, the brakes start to turn into the rollers and you can ride them a little bit better. So those are once you get past that beach breaker, you're usually fine. But, of course, you do always want to keep an eye on the storms too. So that's a big thing. You can't exactly run in real quick if you need to with these kayaks. So I usually try to look for a north wind day. Of course, look for days when you have 0% chance of wind, 0% chance of rain. I don't like any kind of west wind. Seems like a west wind, for whatever reason, gets it real choppy right up against the beach. So any kind of north wind, a light east wind, less than 10 miles an hour kind of deal, kind of what I like to look for.
I tell you something I look for, or something I notice and taken note of with watching the weather and being on the water every day is days when you look at the forecast for the day, and you'll have some type of north wind, a light northeast, northwest, something like that, and then you'll see it go 180 degrees. It'll say okay, we're going to have a 3 to 8 mile northeast wind in the morning, becoming southwest in the afternoon and staying light. You'll see days like that. It seems like it'll be a little bit breezy in the morning and it'll slick off and then be really calm for 3 or 4 hours. And then about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, that's when it kind of starts you get that sea breeze, and fishing with the weatherman, Jason Smith, every once in a while, he'll always say, that's the land heating and cooling is what will push and pull that air off of the water and give you those really nice clear days. That would be what I would be looking for, is when you get 180 degree change in the wind, you're going to have a slick period in the middle of the day where you can really get some stuff done.
Oh yeah. And that's, those slick periods are what we live for in the kayak. That's definitely the most prime time for us out there.
Scott, I know you do the offshore kayaking, but you do more inshore kayaking. What's the bite been like over in your neck of the woods? The guys over here, we're talking to Patrick and talking to Richard throughout the show. It's been slow as far as speckled trout and redfish goes. What about on the kayaking side of things?
Yeah, it's definitely been slower than it usually is this time of year. I've noticed we've been dealing with a lot of dirty water. It just seems like with all the rain runoff and the river runoffs we've had, just keeping the water real dirty inside the bay, not giving it a chance to clean up. With that being said, there's still some fish to be caught, but as compared to what we're used to this time of year, it's definitely a good bit slower.
Man, that water quality thing was really starting to scare me a little bit down in the west part of the Mississippi Sound and in the bay and whatnot. And really this week is the first week I've seen a big turnaround, I feel like, water quality wise. So I think we've hopefully gotten past some of that. We've got some monster tides this week I think are going to clean things up a lot. I've seen a lot of nice clean water here in the past couple of days.
Yeah, I think definitely these tides we got around this full moon are definitely going to help things out a good bit.
Big time.
Scott,
what has been with the success you've been having inshore? What's been the pattern that you see?
We're fishing. The top water bite right at sunrise has still been pretty productive. You can catch a few trout right at sunrise. It's been dying down real fast though. So, if I'm fishing top water, I might do it for the first 30, 45 minutes of the day, and then I'm quickly moving to something subsurface. Been fishing a lot of, mirrodines, a lot of kind of X-wraps, just subsurface suspending twitch baits. And it seems like fishing those, a little slower, still giving it some good, erratic motion, but giving it just as many, long pauses, letting that bait really kind of sit there and hover. That's been real key for the trout. For the redfish, it's kind of similar. We've just haven't been slowing things down real slow and just picking areas over. And, we might find a spot that looks pretty productive, like, a creek mouth or something like that, and sit there and work that creek mouth over. And it may take, 10 or 15 minutes, but once you sit there and work it over enough and really, really key in on that area, there's usually some fish to be caught in it.
All right, Scott. Well, sounds like a good report, really, overall. Inshore seems a little slower, but sounds like the offshore deal, when you can find that window to get out, is a really cool opportunity with a kayak right now. And I know you got a cool tip for us a really smart tip this week. This really pertains to what's going on right now. So this week's onshore tip is brought to you by Alabama Marine Resources. The Alabama Marine Resources Division reminds all recreational anglers who land red snapper in Alabama that one vessel report is to be submitted through the Snapper Check program before fish are brought on shore, regardless of where the fish were caught. Anglers can report their harvest online on the official Outdoor Alabama app or on paper forms at select coastal public boat ramps. For more information about Snapper Check or the 2019 red snapper season, please visit outdooralabama.com. So, Scott, I know you guys are like kind of over there, Flora Bama line. You could be catching some of those fish in Florida, but you got to check them in with Snapper Check. But even before you beach your kayak, man. So I hope you're doing it.
Yep.
Don't get caught up over there, man. Well, tell us what you got for an onshore tip this week.
For the onshore tip, I'd say, last time I was on, I mentioned fishing bright and early, getting out as early as you can. This week, a lot of our best bites been coming right around high tide. So it might not necessarily be as early as what we have been fishing, but fishing, say you got 4 hours to fish, the first, maybe the last 2 hours of the rising tide and the first 2 hours of the falling tide is kind of been our key time to focus on lately.
I like that. High tide. I just always like having something to focus on, whether it's somebody telling me here's a spot to start out, here's a tide to look at. I try not to be a spot fisherman, but I'm just not as good as you guys to be able to really know, go by the conditions and know what to look for. And it's always good to have a starting point and feel like you got a little bit of confidence going out and feel like you got a direction to at least get started. So I like that.
I can definitely relate with that, with the 2 hours ahead and behind a tide, whether it's low or high. I like that area. I like certain areas for that condition, where you're going to get the water to slow down. Just fishing from the boat, I'm going to get areas where the water is going to slow down to a point, to a speed that you can actually fish it, and it's not, you're not having like this ripping tide for 3 or 4 hours through an area where you can't really properly present a bait. So it slows the water down around high tide, like your 2 hours before, 2 hours after. I like that tip a lot.
All right, Scott. Well, man, we always enjoy having you on. Look forward to having you on again. Stay safe out there paddling your way around the Gulf of Mexico.
All right, John. We'll talk to you soon.
Well, Richard, it was good having you on today, man. I always enjoy co-hosting with you. Every week we kind of have a theme to the show. What'd you learn today? What'd you take away from today?
Man, I tell you, when we were talking to Patrick Ivey fishing his tournament, his billfish tournament there that they did so well in, he was telling us how they pulled up to a spot the first day and there was a lot of pressure, a lot of boats around. But they also saw a lot of signs. They also saw a lot of the right signs. They saw like plenty of bait, saw some fish come up and bill some bait or chase some bait around, and just got a real good feeling about the spot and laid with it and stuck with his gut reaction, which to lay with it and see what they could do in that spot. Spent 2 days there and had six shots at billfish, man. That's unbelievable, in a weekend.
Yeah, six bites, and I think they said they had a seventh fish on a teaser.
Come hit a teaser, yeah. I mean, that's just how much better does it get? But something I always tell people, I say this all the time. Fishing is a feeling. You get a funny feeling about a spot or something like that, and right or wrong, I don't know. I always trust what my gut tells me, because the more and more you fish, the more experience you get, the more times it seems like it's right than wrong. And you know when you see the right conditions, when you see lots of bait on the bottom machine, or you see lots of mullet jumping or shrimp jumping around in an area, birds working, things like that. You really start to get a feel for things, and okay, man, this is what it's supposed to look like. I'm gonna fish this area. I'm gonna get some confidence. And if it works out, it doesn't. If it does, man, that's awesome. You cemented that reaction. So trust your gut. I love it.
Yeah, I like that. And I do think that was kind of a theme throughout the show was, we talk with Patrick Garmison, and he says, middle of the day, when it's hot, he doesn't feel like he's going to catch a bunch of fish. He's going somewhere where he knows there's a big fish, and he's going to camp out there. And you said something basically alternate to that, but the same basic thing is that you're going to deep water when it's hot. And that's just a gut feeling, but you have that gut feeling from years and years of conscious and subconscious evidence that's come in, and
it's funny how the mind works on the back end and the front end sometimes, and gives you these ideas, these conscious ideas sometimes to go do crazy things, and sometimes it works out. It's you never know what it's going to give you.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to have the logs and all the hard data where you can say we caught them here on this day and this time and this moon phase and all that. And I think that really helps me when I'm kind of at a loss, when I don't have that gut feeling anymore, and I'm like, all right, man, I got to go back to the drawing board here. But yeah, there's something to be said for just sticking to what feels right. And,
back to what Patrick was talking about, his end of the day, middle of the day kind of big bites he gets. Golly, I can remember at least 4 tournaments off the top of my head where Abrascato and I were battling it out, trying to finish a tournament up and getting a 6-pound bite, catching them at 11, 12 o'clock in the morning or early afternoon or whatnot. Just from staying focused and fishing hard, and you just never know when you get a big bite like that. You just have to really focus. That was another question I asked Patrick Ivey about having to wait those live bait fish out there. You know what I mean? When you're just, like you said, his guys are sitting back there with their hands on the lines for, sun up to sun down. That's incredible. It takes incredible concentration.
Most guys are fishing recreationally, and I love it. I love to go out and relax and have a good time, work hard all week, and get out there and just enjoy yourself no matter what happens. And there's something to be said for that. But there's also something to be said for fishing with a guy who fishes for a living and fishes competitively. And when you go out and fish with somebody like that, you can immediately tell they're just on a different wavelength. Because I'm like, yeah, look at those trout busting over there, and take another swig of beer, and they're like, they're catching them if they're seeing fish. But yeah, it's fun, and if you get the chance, you should definitely go fish with a guy who knows his game, especially if it's something that you're wanting to get into. And you can learn so much from just one day with a guy like that. And
I'd be tickled to go see, to have been able to go see what Patrick and them experienced over the weekend, offshore. Sure. That I've never gotten to experience that, and that's something that's always interested me a ton. So anyway, man, that's awesome.
Well, man, like I say, I enjoy having you on. Folks, that's going to wrap it up this week. As always, we appreciate your reviews on iTunes. It fires us up. We really appreciate you jumping on there and leaving us a review and subscribing there if you haven't already. If you'd like us to send you the show each week, just head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we'll send you the new show by email each week. It's going to wrap it up. Y'all keep whacking them.
This week's Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Angelo DiPaola, the Coastal Connection with EXP Realty, your boating and beach property specialist. Check me out on Facebook at Angelo DiPaola Realtor, the Coastal Connection, or call me direct at 850-287-3440.
And also Killer Dock. Are you suffering from dock dysfunction? Check out a full line of dock enhancement at killerdock.com. That's killerdock.com.
This is Captain Richard Rutland, and this report is brought to you by Cold Blooded Fishing. You can find us at www.coldbloodedfishing.com.
And also Great Days Outdoors, the South's finest hunting and fishing magazine. Pick up your copy wherever magazines are sold, or check them out at greatdaysoutdoors.com.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by me, Joe Baya, and National Land Realty. If I can help you in any way with the purchase or sale of land in Alabama or Florida, whether it's timberland, farmland, recreational land like hunting land, or even agricultural land or ranch land like horse farm, drop me a message at jbaya@nationalland.com. That's JBAYA@nationalland.com.
Also, Ugly Fishing Charters with Captain Patrick Garmison. You can check us out at uglyfishing.com or call us at 251-747-1554.